All right, so basically the kind of topic of today is all on like strategy and problem solving. And so we've all heard the saying, the Einstein quote, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. There's a lot of truth to that. And I think it's obvious, but yet at the same time, I see it all the time in the business world. And that's why I think it's important at regular intervals to take a step back and look at things from a 30,000 foot view so that you can kind of see the playing field. Now, word of caution, I see this fall oftentimes into, as far as like strategy goes, I see this fall into two extremes a lot of times. And the thing to think about is, like most things, the answer lies somewhere in the middle. And so the two extremes that I see are one is the planner, and that's the person that's like always thinking and planning about what they're doing, but they never actually do it. They're very busy, but they're not productive. I think back years ago, I was really guilty of this with a lot of marketing, where I was like, all right, I was constantly like planning my marketing and I never actually did the thing. Um, and so I found this online. I'm not sure who it originated from, but I thought it was just awesome. And it was this like poem or something, and it was preparing to do the thing is not doing the thing. Scheduling time to do the thing is not doing the thing. Making a to-do list for the thing isn't doing the thing. Telling people you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Messaging friends who may or may not be doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Writing a banger social media post about how you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on yourself for not doing the thing isn't doing the thing. The only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing. And so again, I think that is kind of like looking at something that, like I said, was guilty of this really bad in the past, where we're always planning and never actually taking action and doing stuff. The other extreme when it comes to strategy, or rather a lack thereof, is the person that's in the weeds, always working, but never looking up to see if they're actually working on the right things. And it reminds me of old Abraham Lincoln quote, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first four sharpening the axe. And so again, like most things, the answer lies somewhere in the middle. We don't want to you don't want to spend too much time planning, but you also don't want to spend no time planning. And so I believe that the right cadence is at like monthly intervals, and then quarterly doing a much deeper dive. But at monthly increments, I think it's important to look at data, ask questions, and then make small changes. And so there's really 5 questions that I think about a lot every single month. And so the first question is like, what is the constraint to hitting the quarterly goals? And so what is the one big thing that, if accomplished, would have the most significant impact on the goals in the business? All right. So again, just think about like, what's the one constraint, right? The biggest thing that, there might be 30 things you want to do, but if you just fix this one thing, it would solve probably half those other issues. All right. Now, typically when it comes to the gyms, it's almost always a retention or an acquisition problem. It's either getting clients or keeping clients. There are some other rare exceptions, but they're few and far in between. Like I said, almost all gyms, the issue, it's either acquisition or retention, right? Now, if it's a retention issue, my next question would be, well, where in the client journey are we seeing a drop in retention? And so if retention is an issue, then I would just be like, well, where are people falling off? Is it at the 2 month mark, the 3 month mark, the 4 month mark, the 12 month mark? Where is it? I can tell you that in all the data I've seen over the years, it's about the 90-day mark is when retention tends to take a hit. All right. Now, from there, you would then dive deeper into, well, what specific tactics can we use to overcome that? Such as, if we know people are going to cancel 90 days in, well, let's do something to really celebrate them, give them a t-shirt, a gift, 75 days or 60 days, like right before that fall off? Is there something that we can do, accountability sessions to be more proactive to retain them? But again, the constraint, it could be a retention issue. And so there you would want to dive deeper and see like, well, where are we seeing that drop off? The other side of the question, or the other side of the equation, would be acquisition. And so, the question if it's an acquisition constraint to hitting our goals, then I would say, well, where are our ideal customers or clients, and how can we get in front of them? All right. So, and then I would, again, what are the specific tactics we can use to solve that constraint? And in that instance, whether it could be events, going to more businesses, doing more stuff like organically on social media, just following up with leads more. It could be a lot of things. Following up with, but again, you have to start with like, what's the constraint to hitting our goals? And that's your first thing, is what's the constraint to hitting our goals or quarterly rocks? All right. Again, it's almost always going to be an acquisition or retention. It's one of those two. All right. That's my first question. My second question is, and this is something that I really dive into, especially quarterly, what is the reason for the constraint? So once you've identified the constraint, if we decide that, okay, Scott's issue is acquisition, he's not, like, the gym's not growing quickly, then I want to say, like, well, what's the reason for the constraint? And I can tell you it's one of three things. It's one of three reasons for the constraint. It's either a bad strategy, meaning the thing I'm doing is wrong. Again, like I'm doing the wrong thing. For instance, like, well, I'm messaging people all day on LinkedIn. Well, if our ideal client isn't on LinkedIn, then it's like, it's a bad strategy. It just, like, you're wasting your time. Doesn't matter what you're saying. If our ideal client isn't on LinkedIn, the message of people on LinkedIn is a bad strategy. So it could be a bad strategy. The other two things, which are more common, especially in the Alloy world, because we've got a franchise system and we're looking at a large set of data, our strategies are pretty good because we can compare 100 locations. So we get to see what works and what doesn't work. So most of the time for us, it's not going to be, very rarely would I say it would be a bad strategy. A bad strategy might be like our specific cold reactivation play where we did the like get your 100% money back. Like in hindsight, yeah, probably a bad strategy. But that was like one tiny sample size at a much bigger thing. Again, overall, it's typically not a bad strategy. So the other two reasons for the constraint are, is it the quality of execution or is it the quantity of execution? All right. What that means is it the quantity? So is Scott just not doing enough? Is he not getting enough reps of the thing of, phone calls, of business outreach, connecting with other businesses, following up with former clients, texting people, asking for referrals, whatever? Is it a quantity issue or is it a quality issue? Is it, Scott's making 300 calls a week, but he sucks on the phone? Like, is it a quantity issue or a quality issue? It's usually one of those two. So again, you can get all the reps in the world, but if you're saying the wrong things, like, it doesn't matter. Another example of this would be just thinking about like following up with leads on the phone. We used to have the head coaches do some of that. Again, the results weren't that great. So, but in their defense, they also I didn't spend a ton of time training them. And so again, I would say like with that, it was definitely a quality issue. So that's why we didn't have the outcomes we wanted. So again, I want to question one, what's the constraint? Question two, what's the reason for the constraint? Is it bad strategy, quality, or quantity? And again, it's almost always quality or quantity. And I say that simply because of the Alloy network. We've already kind of worked through most of the bad strategies. I can tell you we had a lot more bad strategies in like 2023 when we were first getting started because we didn't really know what we were doing. The third question I ask on a monthly basis is, where do I need to increase my intensity or reallocate time based on the constraint of the business. So I've identified the constraint. I've identified the reason for the constraint. Now it's where do I need to reallocate time to address the constraint? And it's kind of, this goes back to, it's why we implemented our marketing calendar weekly. It goes back to the old rocks, pebbles, and sand story. If you're always going to be busy, but you have to put the rocks in the jar before the pebbles, before the sand, before the water. And the rocks would be like our marketing activities or our retention activities, because again, there's plenty of other things that are going to keep us busy, but we have to make sure we're reallocating time based on the constraint of the business. If the constraint of the business is an acquisition issue, then it's like, okay, starting, new month here, how can I reallocate 10% of my time to do this thing? I would never, none of our businesses are that bad. So I would say you never need to like blow it up and reallocate 50% of your time. But I believe like, all right, where can I make that 10% shift? 4 hours a week. Sometimes it might not even take that much, but where can I reallocate time, 10% of it, to, again, address the constraint? And so time is a resource. And so your time is, you don't have a unlimited amount of time. None of us do. So you have to look at like, with the limited time I have, what is the best use of it? And whatever the constraint in the business is, how can you put 10% more of your time towards that constraint? Right. The fourth question that I ask on a monthly basis is, what's one problem that keeps popping up that I should solve permanently in the month ahead? All right. Good example of this is at Blue Ocean, we do weekly billing. Something I've noticed recently was that we're having a lot of issues, a lot of confusion with freezes. And what I mean by that is someone will send a text message and be like, "Hey, I'm out of town next week," and like that's the message. I'm out of town next week. Well, that's all that doesn't tell us anything. Are they going to make up the sessions? Or are they not going to make up the sessions? And then what happens sometimes will be like, "Hey, you guys billed me last week. I told you I was going to be out of town." They didn't ask us to freeze their membership. So Kelly assumed they were going to make up their sessions. So what's an issue that keeps popping up that we should permanently solve in the month ahead? So for Blue Ocean, the one that came to the example that I wanted to use was, all right, Kelly needs to work to how can we get a more clear freeze or cancellation policy so that we don't just have these random like, "Hey, I'm going to be out." And again, the client means, don't charge me. But, they didn't explicitly say that. And so how can we get more clarity on what does that mean? So that would be an issue that I would try to address. For you guys, it could be something different. But again, what's a problem that keeps popping up regularly? Is it clients showing up at the wrong time? Is it SPSs not showing? Is it SPSs, running late, showing up early, showing up late? Like, again, it could be a lot of things. But what's a problem that keeps popping up, and how can we how can we solve it? Another good example of this would be I got tired, and this was, I don't know, 6 months ago, we changed it. I got really tired of people saying, "Oh crap, I'm out of printer paper, or I'm out of printer ink, I need it now." And so then we're scrambling, trying to go Alicia or I has to go to the store, get it, and run to the gym that day or the next day. It's super frustrating. It's like, man, if we would have just planned ahead, we could have ordered it, had it delivered right there directly, and saved ourselves making a special trip. So what we did was we started posting in Slack a monthly inventory checklist. So it's like, hey, let's address these things before it's a bigger problem. And so again, what's one problem that keeps popping up that you can solve permanently? So Scott, I know you've said your Mondays have been getting busier and busier. So, all right, well, are there a couple little things on Monday that we could address to where it's just like not like an ongoing, like it doesn't keep popping up over and over again? Maybe. Again, sometimes it's the littlest things that make all the difference in the world. And then the fifth and final question that I always ask is, what relationships do I need to lean into? All right. What relationships do I need to lean into? It could be, you know what, I need to lean into this relationship with someone on our team. It could be, I need to lean into this relationship with one of my peers. A good example, Landon is really good at sales. Well, if sales is an issue, then probably would make sense to maybe lean into that. Get some ideas from him. What does he do? Kelly is insanely organized. When you look at managing that many clients and people on the team, so there's a lot more chaos going on over there. So Kelly keeps it very organized. So it's like if you're feeling unorganized, can you lean into that and be like, well, what are you doing? How are you keeping track of this or that? Again, it could be your peers, could be clients. Are there like, hey, I haven't been doing a good job of seeing my Monday, Wednesday evening clients. All right. Well, then reallocate time to maybe lean into those relationships and stay later on a Monday or a Wednesday, a couple times over the month. It could be other businesses or potential partners. We'll use Scott as an example. This physical, I think that's the name of it, the physical therapy clinic. Maybe it's a matter of like, hey, he needs to really lean into that relation to try to develop more of a referral relationship. Could be this med spa that he's working on. Maybe it's like, hey, I need to really lean into that relationship. So again, the 5 questions just to think about is, one, what's the constraint to the business? What's the one thing that if we achieved it or accomplished it would have the best impact on hitting our goals? 2, what is the reason for the constraint? Again, is it a bad strategy? Probably not. Is it the quality of the execution? Meaning like, I just need to get better on the phone? Or is it the quantity of the execution? Meaning like, oh, I just need to make more calls. 3, where do you need to reallocate time based on that constraint? Where do you need to put 10% more of your time or reallocate, again, more of your time towards that big thing that you're trying to solve? 4, what's one problem that keeps popping up that you can solve? Just some of the like mindless, redundant tasks. Another good one that we recently just did was we hired someone to help with clean up all of our reporting because it was taking Alicia an insane amount of time every month to try to figure out where all of our leads are at. And so I was like, let's hire someone to like help permanently address this solution. And then the 5th one is, what relationships do I need to lean into? Again, is it people on the team? Is it like peers that you can learn from? Is it clients that we need to better connect with, or other businesses or potential partners? Again, it could be, it could be more than one thing too, but those are the 5 things that I think are really key, even though they're not on this call. But it's like a while back, my answer to that 5th question, who do I need to lean into? Trey, who's Landon's boss, and David Jolson, who's Annie and Whitney's boss. Like, those were 2 people. I was talking to David earlier today. I've really leaned into those relationships the last several months, and they've been really productive, I think, for both parties. But those are the 5 questions that I would go through and just to make sure every single month I'm taking action to get a little bit better.